Hey, Doug, what do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every week, Todd. Try to record a podcast.
My brain's a rocket, can't sit still. Thoughts collide, they always spill. A million voices shout my name. Never boring, never tame. ADHD, we're running wild. Focus fading, chaotic child. Turn the volume up, take a ride. In this crazy storm, I can't hide.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome the host of ADHP, Doug and Todd.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ADHP, the Attention Deficit Hyperactive Politics Podcast with Doug and Todd. I'm Doug. That's Todd.
Yep.
How you doing today, Todd?
Doing good, doing good. It's been warm today, so I got all the fans going, so if there's any background noise, I apologize, guys.
This is how sheltered life I live. I had no idea it was warm today. I've been in the basement where it stays cold.
I wish I had a basement.
It's been kind of overcast, and it was a little sprinkly this morning.
Well,
Yeah, I had no idea it was warm out today.
let's see what it
Which is
says.
just how I like it. Thank you very much.
According to my phone, it is 77 where I'm at in Renton, Washington.
Yeah, it is always warmer there than here because I'm out here on the middle of the water.
Yeah, you're closer to the water than I am. I'm not that far from Lake Washington, but we don't really get that kind of cool breeze that you guys get over there on the
It's not
peninsula.
the same as the Puget Sound, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole 2 degrees cooler over here. It's only 75. So how was your Sunday? We saw each other on Saturday.
Yeah, we
We
attempted.
went down to SummerCon. We
Yeah,
went there.
we attempted to go, but I didn't think they would be sold out because I didn't know that they could sell out. But considering how many great guests they had this year, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So
Yeah, I mean, it was still a fun misadventure anyways, getting to hang out, getting out of the house. Got to actually see what the weather was like.
yeah, it was nice and cool on Saturday. It was
It was a nice day.
overcast.
Yeah,
There was a little bit of a shower. There was a little bit of rain, and yeah.
Yeah, we were hoping to get some audio, maybe some video, get some interviews down at the SummerCon, but
Yeah.
well, best laid plans, which was no plan at all. So
Yeah, I
we kind of
honestly
played it by ear.
I wanted to buy tickets months ago, but like every time I got paid, like my extra cash went to like important things like overdue
Food and
bills
shelter.
and food and gas and things like that. So
Well, and I told you I messed up too because I knew it was coming and I was planning to get us passes, and I just
I didn't know that.
doofed on when it was coming. I thought it was later in the summer.
It
don't know
was
why.
yeah, it's always like second or third week in June, and yeah, no, last year I went and it was a blast. I got to meet so many people last year. Year before me in my previous podcast co-host, we got to meet Jesse the Body Ventura. That was a cool chat.
Oh,
We didn't think to
nice.
record it, but we
Of course
talked.
not. No, why? You only have Jesse
I,
Ventura.
I was like, I bet you I can get him to talk for longer than a couple minutes. He's like, how do you figure? He's like, just mention his show, Conspiracy Theory, and he'll tell you all about how it's not on the internet. You can't find it anywhere. And I said, actually, I think the first couple seasons are on Amazon. He goes, yeah, oh well, I think it's the third season where we talked about like MK Ultra and there's a couple other things. And it's like, yeah, that season's not available anywhere. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get home when I get home. I'll look. And it was not available through Amazon, but it was available somewhere else. You had to buy the individual
somewhere.
episodes. You couldn't buy the entire series, but you could buy the individual episodes. And I was like, oh, well, it is there. You just have to pay more. So, yeah. And last year, my roommate Christina had a handmade clay pendant that was in his head from the Beauty and the Beast TV series from the 80s, Ron Perlman. And
Oh.
it cost like $80 to get it signed, and I stood in line for like an hour and a half. And when he got there, he was just, he looked beat. He looked like he had been up
Well,
since
you mentioned this
the crack ass
previous
of dawn. Yeah, oh, I did. Okay, yeah. But yeah, I just said thanks for being here, and he looked at
And
me.
how
He
you-
was
yeah.
like, he's like, thank you. And I'm like, well, I mean, you know, I'm paying for the privilege, so yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
no.
I guess they should be thanking you. Damn it.
Well, I think I might have been the first person to thank him for coming out, because I mean he looked exhausted when he walked up. So
Well, that's a good tip for anybody going to a con. Be overly nice to the people
Be
that are showing up
appreciative.
there, because they're dealing with a ton of people, and if you're a little specially nice, maybe they do something special for you.
I don't
Maybe they
know
spend a little
if
more
being
time
as
with you.
like overly nice, but be legitimate. Don't be super sugary. Don't be so saccharine that it's like fake. It feels fake or false.
No, but I just mean be appreciative.
Yeah,
Be-
yeah.
Be respectful of their time.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
Don't
don't.
treat them like they're your personal show monkey or something.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, so and then yeah, so after that failed, we got to go over to the 8-bit arcade in Renton.
Yes, the barcade, the
Classic.
barcade in downtown Renton on Third.
Yeah, play some old school games
They
and
have
some beer and pizza. It was,
bunch
it
of
was,
up-
it was all right as an alternative to a con.
like it's essentially like an old school arcade with pinball machines and upright and cocktail table arcade machines, and it also serves alcohol. So it's a barcade.
Yeah, it's a dope place. I love it.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time now. I remember counting down the days to when it was going to open.
I remember opening because I was actually living in Kirkland, I think, when it first opened. But then I lost that place and ended up staying occasionally at my girlfriend's house at the time, and she lived in North Renton, so we would go down there every once in a while. And yeah. No, that's the only one left in King County. There used to, or at least on this side of the water, there used to be a bar up in Everett called the AFK Tavern, and then they had
They had one of them in Tukwila, Renton area too.
South Renton. Yeah, the Elixir, AFK's Elixirs and Eateries. They opened, I think 2014, I think, and then it was.
Yeah, I did stand up there once.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about doing that. I actually did. I went there when they had Rock Band, where you could play on stage, and they had an Xbox 360 and all the equipment. You know, the guitar, the bass, the singer, microphone, and the drum kit. And
This
I
is the
did.
one in Renton, Tukwila?
Yeah, at Elixirs and Eatery. Yeah.
That's
On
the
the-
former location of the Keg.
Yeah. It's now like an Asian restaurant. Yeah, I think you were there along with Silas.
It was part of Silas's nerd show.
Yeah. And so yeah, it was. It wasn't the night that you guys were there, but it was another night. But it was using the same stage. But yeah, no, it was cool. There's video of me singing Ace of Spades there. Terrible singer, but I figure if I'm gonna sing terribly, I might as well do it as Lemmy. So
Yeah, there you go.
he also has kind of a rough voice.
Oh, right. Well, anything happen in the news this week, Todd? Anything you hear about?
Oh man! So apparently, the president authorized some bombs to be dropped, and apparently he didn't hit his intended target, but he destroyed a bunch of shit. So
Well, from what I mean, I guess the reports I'm seeing. So what obviously we're talking about is Trump authorizing the strikes against the Iranian nuclear facilities. As far as I know, they did hit their targets. Of course, they would say that.
yeah, I
I
mean,
haven't heard anybody say that they missed.
You're
You're the first person I've heard.
Yeah, I don't remember where. I think initially I heard it on CNN where they were intending to hit specific like bomb making places, and I guess either they hit the wrong building or they hit the place and it was empty. So is kind of what I heard. So
Oh, well, that's I was going to get into it. Well, we will get into it.
but
But
that's
the pictures I've seen have showed basically bunker buster entry locations. It did show a building that was not targeted, that was on the surface, but apparently the things they were going for deep underground. So
Oh,
that's why they were
okay.
using the bunker buster bombs.
Yeah, yeah.
They're claiming total success. Again,
Of course
it's
they
the
are.
Trump administration, so of course they are. And even if any administration always claims total success, mission accomplished. Remember that. Uh, but speaking of mission accomplished, this whole rabble rousing around Iran, and it's changed again here already overnight. So we kind of had to redo this last minute. So it's going to be a little more sparse and a little more haphazard than even usually is. Um, but uh, but just this entire ramp up to war with Iran, just listening to everybody try to justify it, is so eerily reminiscent of Iraq in 2003, which is why we're titling this episode. Didn't we already do this 22 goddamn years ago?
Right.
Um, but it's because if we let's rewind to 2003 and just remember what was going on. So um, parallels from then to now. So we had just had 9/11, right?
Yeah.
And Israel, they recently had what Barack Obama called their 9/11, what a lot of supporters of Israel have called Israel's 9/11, was the October 7th attacks of, was that 24 or is that going back to 23 now?
I couldn't tell you.
I gotta refresh my memory on that one. It's just all time is melding into one block.
Where?
So
It says we're streaming, but I don't see anything on our YouTube channel. Where am I streaming to?
it's a mystery.
Hold on, let's take a look here.
Yeah, I've not gotten any notification that we're streaming.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm recording, but it doesn't appear to be actually streaming. So I'm still recording. I'm gonna stop that. And can I do this while recording still?
Do you want me to keep going while you work on this?
Keep
or?
going. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, and yes, it has been since 2023. It was when the Israel-Hamas war began after the attacks. The darkest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust is what some have called it.
Right.
And just like after 9/11, there was legitimate righteous outrage, and people wanted something to be done. The siege on Palestine has not been the exact same thing as the Afghanistan war, but in terms of loyalists to the country, like they support it. A lot of us were in favor of Afghanistan in terms of, well, we have to do something, and this is who they're telling us is at fault, even though at the time we tried telling them, hey, these were all Saudi nationals that carried out 9/11. But the point being, using the emotional eruption around 9/11, they directed that to Iraq. And now Israel seems to have done the same thing, using the emotional turmoil surrounding the October 7th attacks, and now they're attacking Iran as part of a larger conflict. And it really is Israel's 9/11 in terms of the way that they're just using it for political gain rather than an actual attempt to make the world a safer place. So going back to 2003, we will remind ourselves from Britannica.com. In 2002, the new U.S. President George W. Bush argued that the vulnerability of the United States following the September 11th attacks, combined with Iraq's alleged continued possession of and manufacture of weapons of mass destruction, an accusation that was later proved erroneous, and its support for terrorist groups, which, according to the Bush administration, included Al-Qaeda, the perpetrators of the September 11th attacks. So it made disarming Iraq a new priority.
Yeah.
It's exactly what they're saying about Iran now. Is, oh, well, they have a nuclear program that's imminently going to attack us. And then if we try and say, well, that's 3 years away at best, how is this an imminent attack? They start citing their promotion of terrorism and the fact that they aren't on board with fighting various, ISIS and different groups.
Yeah.
It's really is just the same build-up all over again. And just like how Iraq appeared to comply with the resolution, but in early 2003, President Bush and British Prime Minister Tony Blair declared that Iraq was actually continuing to hinder UN inspections and that it still retained proscribed weapons. Other world leaders, such as French President Jacques Chirac, German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder, citing what they believed to be increased Iraqi cooperation, sought to extend the inspections and give Iraq more time to comply with them. However, on March 17th, seeking no further UN resolutions and deeming further diplomatic efforts by the Security Council futile, Bush declared an end to diplomacy and issued an ultimatum to Saddam, giving the Iraqi president 48 hours to leave Iraq. France, Germany, Russia, and other countries objected. So, again, just like with Iran, we're seeing them, we had a deal with Iran. In 2015, we struck a deal with them. In 2018, Trump ripped up that deal, which set the grounds for the current situation. So, again, we had a deal. The situation was improving. All accounts say that Iran ended their nuclear weapons program in 2003 after seeing what happened to Iraq. And there's been no evidence that they've picked it back up since then.
Wow.
And then, of course, we remind ourselves the rationale again, the further rationale for the Iraq War. Now, here's something that I actually was not aware of is throughout the 90s, prior to 9/11 and the Second Iraq War, the Gulf War from 91 had never officially ended due to a lack of armistice to formally end it. And that kind of led to a whole series of sanctions and resolutions against Iraq throughout the rest of the 90s. And the Bush campaign actually made it part of their platform to try to remove Saddam during the 2000 election. But after failing to gain UN support for an additional UN authorization, the U.S., together with Ukraine UK and a small contingent from Australia, Poland, and Denmark, if you recall the Coalition of the Willing, they launched an invasion on 20th March 2003 under the authority of UN Security Council Resolution 660 and United Nations Security Council Resolution 678. So, a 2008 study conducted by the Center for Public Integrity and Foundation for Independent Journalism revealed that between 2001 and September 2003, George W. Bush and 7 senior officials in his administration issued explicit statements on at least 532 occasions claiming that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction or had established covert alliances with Al-Qaeda, or both. The study concluded that these statements were issued by the American government as part of an orchestrated campaign to generate jingoistic attitudes in the United States for the purpose of initiating a war based on false pretenses. So I go back to that time in order to draw the similarities between what we've been hearing from the Trump administration recently. Now, the Trump administration is in a tougher spot than Bush was because, like I said, Bush ran on getting rid of Saddam.
Yeah.
Trump ran on no war. Trump ran on, if I'm in office, there wouldn't be any wars. If I'm in office, Ukraine wouldn't have happened. He was tweeting back at Obama during Obama's administration that Obama would attack Iran as a distraction or to gain political points.
I've seen a number of people post videos of him talking about how Obama is going to put us in World War III and he's going to do this, that, and the other, and that he's going to be the president that has no wars, and then somebody posted that, and then the video of him saying that we just bombed it, not in his words, but we just bombed the shit out of these guys, and they're like, is this you?
Right.
So yeah.
And because of this unique situation that he came to the table in, trying to be an anti-war candidate, and being a liar really is his unique situation, is the fact that he can't ever be consistent and lies all the time.
Dude.
But his own cabinet people and his other members of his administration have been just having to whiplash themselves in the last week or so because
he would never do that.
Here, right? Like we had Tulsi Gabbard out here telling Congress that Trump would never want to attack Iran, and there's no justification for it, and they're not a threat. And then
Right.
now here we are 2 weeks. Like now she's having to say, oh, we've revised that and they are a threat.
Yeah.
Upon further review, it was full of shit.
It's almost
Like
like
full
they
of
don't
shit then or
communicate with each
now.
other, and they're like, "Oh no, he would never," and his never, because, except for he did, and here's where he did it. Like, oh well, I mean, he's the president; he can do whatever he wants.
Well, is that the case? We're going to investigate that.
Yeah.
So Trump was anti-war. Trump was anti-bombing Iran, even though he assassinated their general the last time he was president, and Iran didn't really do much in response to that either. Which that's the big twist at the end of all this is we're going to treat it like it's legitimate for now, but ultimately, is this just theater that Iran is actually a part of? And I'll get to why I am postulating that at the end of this. But before we get there, what is the real geopolitical reasoning behind these attacks? Why, if he was an anti-war candidate that thought bombing Iran was a sign of weakness, why did Trump do this? And if it's true that Iran's nuclear program was not an imminent threat, what motivated the U.S.-Israeli attack? Why now? The answer, according to The Guardian, according to Nader Hashemi at The Guardian, the answer is political opportunity. So, reading from The Guardian. The United States has bombed Iran. Donald Trump announced on Sunday that B-2 bombers attacked 3 nuclear sites, including the Fordow nuclear site, sometimes referred to as the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program. As the world waits for Iran's response, which we now have, and we'll get to at the end of this, it is worth revisiting events since 12 June, when Israel, with U.S. support, attacked the Islamic Republic. The official reason is nuclear weapons. The real reason, I contend, is the elimination of the Iran-led axis of resistance and establishing Israeli regional hegemony over the Middle East with tacit support from Arab autocrats. According to American and Israeli leaders, Iran was about to construct a nuclear weapon. Israel was forced to engage in a preemptive attack by way of response. According to Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's very survival was at stake, while Trump claimed Iran was very close to having a weapon. Tulsi Gabbard, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, has now fallen in line. Weeks after testifying before Congress that Iran was not pursuing a bomb, thus undermining Trump's stated position and embarrassing him politically, she now claims Iran could get a bomb within weeks. No serious analyst of Iran's nuclear program believes this to be true. As the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency has affirmed, there was no indication of a systemic program in Iran to produce a nuclear weapon. CNN reported last week that according to U.S. intelligence assessments, not only was Iran not actively pursuing a nuclear weapon, it was also up to 3 years away from being able to produce and deliver one. When Secretary of State Rubio was asked the day after the attack if he had seen evidence that Iran was about to weaponize its nuclear program, Rubio responded that the question was irrelevant. When pressed further, he said, forget about intelligence. Yeah, clearly the administration has. So if Iran's nuclear program was not an imminent threat, what motivated the U.S.-Israeli attack? First, the Islamic Republic of Iran has never been weaker. Decades of economic sanctions and government corruption have impoverished the average citizen while enriching the ruling elite, kind of like Iraq was. Official poverty figures reveal that roughly 1/3 of Iranians live in poverty, and the real figure is believed to be much higher. Early this year, for example, the state-run Mardam Salari newspaper had front-page headline, "The 400% drop in wages over a decade." In other words, Iran's economy is broken, and its citizens are struggling to survive. Internally, the Islamic Republic suffers from a crisis of internal legitimacy. This was on full display after the death of Mahsa Amini in September 2022, that saw the birth of the Women, Life, and Freedom movement that rocked Iran and showed a global spotlight on its sordid human rights record. Over 60% of Iran's population is under the age of 30. They have no memory of life before the 79 revolution. Their moral reference point is religious authoritarianism and clerical rule, which they overwhelmingly reject. If there was a referendum in Iran today, no serious Iran expert doubts that the Islamic Republic would lose the vote by a wide margin. While the recent bombing of Iran has produced a rally around the flag effect, it's too soon to make any conclusive determination on how widespread this phenomenon might become. And regionally, Iran has never been weaker. The loss of its main regional ally in Lebanon, which is Hezbollah, was a huge blow to Iran's regional influence and its national defense doctrine. A core reason why Iran has supported an armed Hezbollah was for a moment like this. In the event of a direct Israeli or American attack on Iranian soil, it was assumed that Hezbollah would open a second front against Israel. This is no longer an option after Israel's sophisticated attack on Hezbollah last summer effectively neutralized this organization. Same with the toppling of Assad in Syria, the weakening of Iran-backed militias in Iraq. It's just an overall picture of Iranian geostrategic weakness. So basically, between their political instability and their actual regional weakness, this has produced a golden opportunity for Israel to press ahead in the hope of delivering a blow to its chief regional rival. So Israel wants to be the hegemonic power in the region. So the real Iranian threat to Israel and by proxy to America is Iran's ideological opposition to Israeli and American policy in the region. Its axis of resistance has sought to actively challenge, both in words and in deeds, Western influence in the region. Iran and its allies have also sought to rally popular opinion in the Arab Islamic world around this anti-imperialist theme. This is the real Iranian threat that the United States and Israel seek to eliminate. So basically, and then the article goes on to compare Iran now to Cuba in the mid 20th century, or from the mid to late 20th century. Basically, they're not really a destabilizing force. Their role in regional destabilization is exaggerated in American foreign policy circles and demonized because, like the Cuban threat, the Iranian one today was that the countries had foreign policies that were outside U.S. influence and control. I mean, that's really what's going on here. Now, I'm no supporter of Iran's government. I am no supporter of any theocratic state. I weep for I hear about the Iran that existed prior to 1979, and I'm like, oh man, it would have been an awesome place. I wish we could bring back the democracy that they had. Now, of course, that was not really a democracy, was it? It was a Shah that was put in place by America, essentially. And so our thought is that we could just go do something like that again, like that was our plan with Iraq, was to essentially give them that kind of democracy. And you just can't give somebody democracy. The people have to take it. The revolution has to come from within. If you try and stoke a revolution from the outside, I mean, this is what the CIA did throughout the 20th century. Yeah. That really is it resulted in a list of war crimes that'll probably never be prosecuted. So Iran's threat is not nuclear weapons. Iran's ability to weaponize its nuclear program was effectively curtailed in 2015 when it negotiated a deal with the Obama administration. At the urging of Netanyahu, Trump tore up that agreement 3 years later, which set the stage for today's crisis. The real Iranian threat is that it has an independent foreign policy. This does not mean Tehran has a good foreign policy on normative or ethical grounds. Far from it. It simply means Iran operates independently as an actor in the Middle East, challenging American and Israeli hegemony. This is the real Iranian threat that the U.S. and Israel seek to eliminate. And again, that comes from Nadir Hashemi, who is an associate professor of Middle East and Islamic politics and director of the Al-Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at the Edmund A. Walsh School of Foreign Services at Georgetown University. So I think that that's an excellent analysis right there. But I really wanted that background as we continue to go in and look at the rationale that the administration continues to give. Because I think that laid out the facts without any spin. And now so now I want people to be able to pick out the spin when they hear it. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I had to cough.
It's all good.
Choking on all this geopolitics. So now we're switching over to the BBC. And no, not that BBC, Todd.
British Broadcasting Company?
That's the one.
Corporation?
The big, beautiful corporation. Since U.S. President Donald Trump ordered strikes on several nuclear facilities in Iran over the weekend, Democrats as well as lawmakers from his own party have questioned his legal authority to do so. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie said on X that the strikes were not constitutional, and another Republican Congressman, Warren Davidson, wrote, "It's hard to conceive a rationale that's constitutional." But Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, defended the president, saying he evaluated that the imminent danger outweighed the time it would take for Congress to act, and that there's tradition of similar military actions under presidents of both parties. So, did you detect any bullshit there, Todd?
Oh yeah, loads. Like all of it.
But based on what we just went over, there was no imminent danger that could outweigh any time it would take for Congress to act. I mean, unless he thinks Iran was literally switching gears this instant, and then 3 years from now, maybe they have something.
Right.
That's not imminent. That's not imminent, Mike.
That's not how that works, man.
So BBC Verify has asked legal experts whether Trump's actions were in line with the Constitution, or whether he should have consulted Congress first. So, what does the Constitution say about military action? There are two parts of the U.S. Constitution that are relevant here, Articles 1 and 2. Article 1 specifically lists the ability to declare war as one of Congress's powers. However, Article 2, which lays out the president's powers, says that the president shall be commander-in-chief of the army. And sources at the White House have told the BBC that they see this as the rationale for strikes on Iran. Constitutional experts have said that Article 2 gives the president the authority to use military force in certain circumstances. The circumstances aren't specifically laid out in the Constitution, but they have been subsequently interpreted to include actual or anticipated attacks, or to advance other important national interests. And that's according to experts at the Council for Foreign Relations.
Yeah.
These interests could include the prevention of nuclear proliferation, which Trump administration said was their justification for the strikes on Iran. 4 constitutional experts told BBC Verify that Trump had some authority under these circumstances to order the military strikes. The short answer is yes, he did have the authority here, says Claire Finkelstein, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. There is a long-standing practice of presidents engaging in isolated military engagements without congressional approval. So that line, especially the first time I read through this, really stopped me in my tracks because yes, he has the authority because there's a long-standing practice of presidents having engaged in this behavior. Every single time a president does something like this, we're all up in arms about whether he actually had the right to do it. But apparently a president has done it enough times now where we're just supposed to see it as okay.
Yeah.
Another constitutional law expert, Jessica Levinson at Loyola Marymount University, said the president has limited authority to authorize airstrikes as long as it, quote, doesn't begin to resemble a war, and there is no clear definition of when that occurs. So again, it's just a gray area that Congress has allowed the president to exist in. Andrew Rudolovich, a professor of government at Bowdoin College, told BBC Verify he didn't believe Trump had the authority to launch the latest strikes as there wasn't a sudden attack to repel. Although Article 1 gives Congress the power to declare war, the provision has rarely been used. The last time Congress invoked this power was 1942. It's been used just 10 times since 1812. And again, as has been mentioned, experts told us that presidents using their authority to order military actions without getting approval from Congress has become more common. So John Bellinger, who was a legal advisor in the White House under President George W. Bush, said, over the last several decades, Congress has acquiesced more and more in presidential uses of military force for a variety of purposes without congressional authorization. Congress and the courts have effectively negated the requirements of a declaration. And that's Jonathan Turley, one of the most disappointing constitutional experts I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
So just in fairness, here's what other presidents have done. President Barack Obama authorized airstrikes in Libya without requesting permission from Congress, which his administration justified under Article 2, as was the case for the mission to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan in 2011. During Trump's first term in office, he ordered the killing of Iranian military officer Qasem Soleimani without congressional approval. Bill Clinton launched strikes in the Balkans without prior approval, and more recently, Joe Biden did the same thing, hitting Houthi targets in Yemen, as well as in Syria. So it's been repeatedly used by presidents throughout our history, said Mr. Turley. In 2016, Obama dropped more than 26,000 bombs from Syria to Libya to Somalia without such calls for impeachment. History and precedent favors Trump in this action. Now, here's the thing, though. All the drone strikes and the bombs that Obama dropped during his presidency, that's why the left reviles Obama in many circles now. They see him as a merchant of death. Obama's gotten a lot of flack for that, for those bombings. And I bet we can find some Republicans calling to impeach him at any point.
I think all the people who like say they don't want to vote for him or didn't want to vote for him or even Kamala was they for things like that. It's like, well, that's what they did, and people love them. So why is that different than what Trump is doing? And I'm like, I mean, honestly, I don't really know. I just know that he probably got permission to do those, and Trump clearly did not care what Congress had to say. So,
and I mean, to be fair, they are citing incidences here where the president, like Obama, didn't get permission from Congress to do these things. Now, they were working under the the authorized use of military force that was created in 2002 for the Iraq War, which lasted in full effect until 2023.
oh, wow.
And technically still isn't fully repealed now, to be honest. But the Senate repealed their authorization in 2023,
Okay.
and it's floundered in the House. But my point being is that they were wrong when it happened before, and if you were paying attention to critics of Obama, they all criticized him for it.
Yeah. But they love when Trump does it, though.
Yeah, and then what about other laws? Critics of Trump's strikes on Iran have also pointed out to the War Powers Resolution, which was passed in '73 following America's withdrawal from the Vietnam War, to limit the president's ability to wage war without consulting Congress first. Although the law does allow the president to use force without congressional approval in emergencies, it states that they should, in every possible instance, shall consult with Congress before introducing United States Armed Forces into hostilities. It does not appear that President Trump complied with this requirement, says Mr. Bellinger. Based on reporting so far, it appears that President Trump did not actually have a substantive consultations with Congress, but rather simply informed several Republican leaders. U.S. media has reported that Democratic Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had been called about an hour before the strikes began, but with little detail. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt wrote on X that the administration made courtesy calls to congressional leadership. The resolution also says that Congress must be notified within 48 hours after military action has taken place. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that Congress were notified after the planes were safely out and that they complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act. So Hegseth actually waited till the planes were safely out before notifying his chat thread? Is that if you have signal, did you already know before the planes were safely out?
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
I saw a thing today that Trump said that everyone's safely back in wherever state they landed in. He's like, are we not supposed to announce where these soldiers are residing? Is that something we're supposed to be doing? So I guess he talks too much.
And then jumping over to a CNN article, The War Powers Act requires advanced consultation with Congress whenever possible before entering U.S. troops into hostilities. Here, I think it is pretty obviously was possible, and it also pretty obviously wasn't done. The Supreme Court has been generous in approving Trump's expansive use of power, most notably its immunity ruling last year. That view has also contributed to the analysis, a senior White House official said. This isn't some technical rulemaking, said Chris Anders, senior counsel at the American Civil Liberties Union. It is literally as one of the enumerated powers of the Constitution. In the Federalist Papers, James Madison argued for an exception that's been hotly discussed since, that the president can use force if needed to, quote, repel a sudden attack on the United States. If applied to Iran, Anders said, it wouldn't meet that test. The use of bombing runs against facilities that have been standing there for years, perhaps decades, and were not about to be a part of a sudden attack on the United States. A senior Justice Department official said if the conflict continues for an extended period, the administration may have to go to Congress for approval, but maintained that bombing 3 nuclear sites does not rise to the level of needing congressional approval. The official also noted the Trump administration has the support of senior House and Senate leaders. So again, it's the story of the Trump administration. He's getting to violate the Constitution at will because Congress is controlled by his lackeys.
Right.
So, what could Congress actually do? Or what would Congress actually do? Thomas Massey, that we referenced before, and Democratic Representative Ro Khanna are seeking to reassert Congress's authority over military action with a co-sponsored war powers resolution. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine said on Fox News Sunday that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is pushing for a vote as soon as possible on a resolution so, quote, all members of the Senate have to declare whether or not the U.S. should be at war with Iran. U.S. actions in Iraq and Afghanistan in the 2000s were at least debated in Congress at the time, with requests from then President George W. Bush, Massey noted. It should have been declarations of war, but at least they did an authorization of use of military force, Massey said. We haven't had that. This has been turned upside down. Some lawmakers and legal experts are looking at the second Iraq war as precedent for congressional action, and also a warning to review the intelligence. We are in yellow cake uranium land, a former national security official said, referring to botched intelligence that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Congress should be asking questions about what intelligence and what legal findings they did before taking this escalatory action. Democratic and Republican administrations have repeatedly stretched the 2002 authorization of use of military force, which authorized the Iraq War, as legal authority for military action in locations outside of Iraq. An earlier that authorized action against Al-Qaeda and associated groups has also been used beyond what was conceived in the post-9/11 era. The problem is that historically, the only meaningful check on presidential abuse of war powers has been pushed back from Congress. But that was when Congress took its constitutional and institutional responsibilities seriously. And that's from Stephen Vladek. The ACLU's Anders says there's still time for Congress to act on a bipartisan basis, suggesting public hearings to air the Trump administration's military and legal justifications. Congress could also look at restricting funds for such actions without its buy-in. It's also a chance for a true national debate. One advantage that comes to the executive branch when it goes to Congress and asks for authorization, that there's a clear examination of what the United States is getting into, so there's much more of a national buy-in. So there's basically trying to say that if Trump really wanted popular support for these attacks, going to Congress would be a good way to get it. But
yeah.
he's not really interested in popular support for it. He's just interested in whatever the grand bargain he's got going on with Netanyahu. And then lastly, before we move on to the update on this, on Iran's response, even Putin tells Iranian foreign minister that there was no justification for U.S. attack. So from Reuters, Russian President Vladimir Putin told Iran's foreign minister on Monday that there was no justification for the U.S. bombing of his country and that Moscow was trying to help the Iranian people. Putin hosted Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi in Moscow 2 days after the attack, and quote, the absolutely unprovoked aggression against Iran has no basis and no justification, Putin told him in televised comments. So even Putin is not following Trump's narrative on this. So what happened? What happened overnight? What changed today? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a repeat of Trump's last term when they assassinated Soleimani. And in retaliation, Iran blew up an airfield after we had, evacuated it.
Right.
So what happened here? So as of this story is from 2:40 p.m. today. Iran launched a missile attack on an American airbase in Qatar on Monday that caused no injuries, when Donald Trump dismissed it as a weak response. The attack on Al Udeid airbase in neighboring Qatar threatened to widen a conflict that began on June 13 with an Israeli strike on Iran, targeting its nuclear program and ballistic missiles. Excuse me. Iran had threatened to retaliate against the United States after U.S. bombers dropped 30,000-pound Buster bunkers on Iranian underground nuclear facilities at the weekend, joining Israel's air war against Iran, and Trump had raised the possibility of the Iranian government being toppled. We did not assault anyone, and we will never accept being assaulted by anyone, Iran's supreme leader said. We will not submit to anyone's aggression. This is the logic of the Iranian nation. Iran gave advance notice to the U.S. via diplomatic channels hours ahead of the attack, as well as to Qatari authorities. Trump seized on that as a positive sign. So did you catch that? Iran gave advance notice via diplomatic channels hours ahead of the attacks.
Of course they did.
I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured, Trump wrote on his Truth social media site. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. So that was earlier today. And again, it's just like, is this all political theater? Is this all war theater? Like, is this, you talk about theaters of war, but is this actual theater via war? Did we know what their response would be? Was it all worked out and cooked up ahead of time? Because here's what happens now. 2 hours ago, as of 2 hours ago, Trump says there is a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran. So this is one of Trump's go-to plays, which is cause a ruckus, cause a problem, and then take credit when he quote unquote fixes the problem that he instituted to begin with. It's, going around kicking beehives and selling Raid, right? It's that kind of stuff. It's racketeering, essentially.
Yeah.
So Trump announced what he called. So that previous story came from Reuters. Now we're back over to CNN for their blog updates. So President Donald Trump announced what he called a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran. The ceasefire is set to start in approximately 6 hours. It has been, according to the president, has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended, the president wrote on social media. Neither Iran nor Israel has made any comments about a pending ceasefire. The ceasefire will be phased in during the next 24 hours. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful, the president wrote. So again, we have. Was it all just for show? Was anything actually happening? And then since this announcement, there was a big strike blast was heard in Tehran by CNN's team on the ground.
Yeah.
Israel issued new evacuation warnings. So apparently these were just the pre-planned final attacks, even though there's already a ceasefire in agreement, supposedly. So it's all professional wrestling with this guy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all fake. It's just all fake.
The only thing he's missing is the grandiose speeches like Hogan and Savage used to make back in the 80s. Oh yeah, brother, you know, next Sunday I'm gonna whoop your ass. Yeah.
And then, of course, you know,
Yeah.
3 years from now, Trump will be gone out of office, and the rest of the world trying to move on will have to deal with the fallout from this.
Right. Yeah.
Like, will anybody ever make a deal with America again?
Probably
well,
not.
Certainly Iran won't, right? It'd be. I mean, who really knows? I guess.
I guess it depends on how much money is involved.
Well, yeah, and it depends on what sort of grand bargain is going on behind closed doors, that's a topic for another day. But
Yeah.
the grand bargain with Jared Kushner and various Middle Eastern countries, and yeah, there's definitely, if you're into conspiracy theories, there's something to dive into there.
Yeah.
So that does it for the main topic. We can move over to the news now, Todd.
The news, alrighty. Okay, I'm just making sure I got the right button here.
And now it's time for our weekly news. We're breaking down the key stories shaping our world, from policy shifts to the latest in global affairs. Let's dive in.
All right. So, in some good news, some at least temporarily good news, Mahmoud Khalil has been released from custody. Yay!
Yay!
So he's someone we've been following. He was the recent Columbia University graduate. That's a green card holder, married to an American citizen, who was detained and sent to Louisiana because he is an organizer. He's Palestinian, and he is an organizer of pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia. So he was a political prisoner of America in America, and he is finally out on bail, I believe.
Right on.
Excuse me.
Right arm.
So, and then, of course, 2 days after being released from ICE custody, he was back on the streets outside of the University of Columbia, surrounded by a crowd of hundreds of supporters. So he was detained on March 8th. This story is coming from thepeoplesdispatch.org. He was detained on March 8th by plainclothes ICE agents outside of his home in Columbia University housing, in front of his pregnant wife, Dr. Nora Abdallah. Khalil spent 104 days in ICE custody in the notorious LaSalle Detention Center in the rural town of Jena, Louisiana. So his wife was pregnant when he was taken in.
Oh, wow.
She's since had the baby. He's got to meet the baby, as far as I know, at least once.
Well, that's good.
And it was in a visitation at the prison, at the detention center.
Oh, okay. But he's home now,
got-
though, right?
But now he is finally home.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So Khalil described to members of the press outside of the Cathedral of St. John of the Divine on June 20th, "It felt like I was literally being kidnapped. These 30 hours were the most difficult time during the whole experience," Khalil said, who described that during this time he was not told what he was accused of. Khalil described some of the conditions he faced while at the detention center in Jena. "I shared a dorm with over 70 men," he said, describing the lack of privacy and little change from night to day, with lights on 24/7. "It's so normal in detention to see men cry," Khalil said. "They can't understand why they are there. They know they don't have documents, but does this actually mean they should be detained?" Khalil asked. Khalil was released on June 20th in Louisiana and arrived at the airport in Newark, New Jersey the very next day. Accusing the Columbia University administration of trying its best to portray me as someone who was violent, Khalil spoke at the press conference near the Columbia University gates on June 22nd to set the record straight. "Who is Mahmoud Khalil?" he asked the crowd of hundreds of supporters gathered on the steps of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. "Mahmoud Khalil is a human rights defender. Mahmoud Khalil is a freedom fighter. Mahmoud Khalil is a refugee. Mahmoud Khalil is a father and husband. And above all, Mahmoud Khalil is Palestinian," he said, to thunderous applause. "Mahmoud Khalil is a Palestinian who refused to remain silent." Before Khalil's press conference outside of the cathedral, People's Dispatch spoke to Maryam Alwan, Columbia University's graduate, and Khalil's friend. For Alwan, her friend's return is the closure that we all needed. I can't believe it's been over 3 months. Every single day we were counting the days and hoping that he would be released soon, Alwan said. Her friend's release is a strong message that no matter what repression they try, it will always backfire. Khalil took questions from reporters. One asked what his message was to students who might be fearful of expressing their activism based on what happened to him. We will win, Khalil asserted. I believe that we will win. The students across the country have always led us towards what's right, Khalil continued. They were our moral compass. This happened during the Vietnam War, during apartheid South Africa, during fossil fuels demonstrations, and it's happening now. After taking questions from the press, Khalil led a crowd in a march to Columbia's gates. While in front of the gates, Khalil vowed to continue to protest against the genocide in Gaza.
Right
so
on.
I think that's pretty uplifting. That's a pretty hopeful situation right now. I don't know if I don't know that he's clear, if he's in the clear yet, but
yeah.
he's at least no longer in prison and gets to spend time with his wife and his new baby.
Yeah, well, that's good. Glad to hear at least he's able to see his kid without, like, officers kind of keeping an eye on him and all that. So.
Now switching over to BuzzFeed via Yahoo.com. I voted for Trump in 2016. When he won, I was shocked by how brutally my life changed overnight. This is by Julia Wu. She says, I am a Chinese woman, a daughter of immigrants who voted for Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election. It is almost a secret, though I sometimes offer up the confession like it is a penance. I cried driving away from my polling place and sobbed on a futon when he won. My chest was tight, my stomach churned, my face was hot. All blood and breath and acid had conspired inside me to signal alarm. I immediately hated my choice, but I did not yet believe it to be wrong. I had bought into the lesser of two evils arc, but her emails still echoing in my mind to assure me that this was the only option. Wow. My eagerness is, in addition to a behavioral and white evangelical culture, provided me with one thing I'd been chasing my whole life, an entry point into dominant white culture. I wanted to unother myself and believe that I could assimilate myself into safety, power, and love. Okay, so this is a story Todd had put on here. I had not read through it yet.
Yeah, it looked like it would be an interesting story. It sounds like she's
the problem is she's going through her entire life starting in grade school.
Oh.
And it's more just a biography leading up to the.
Yeah. Well,
it's like when you pull up a recipe that you want, and then you got to get through like 5 pages of them describing the first spring where they thought about.
I remember when I came up with this recipe when I was 5 years old back in the Second World War. I didn't realize it was going to be a biography, but it sounds like she learned her lesson, and.
Well, it sounds like I don't know why she voted for him in the first place. It sounds like she immediately regretted it.
I mean, yeah, why would she? If she knew it was a bad choice to do it, why did she do it?
Yeah, like you also have the option of just not voting.
I have feelings about people who don't vote, because a lot of times these are the people who are the loudest. Like, well, I didn't want to vote because I didn't like either one. It's like, well, why didn't you pick the lesser of two evils? Look at all the information that's out there and realize that one is most definitely more evil than the other. Although it sounds like she thought she was picking the lesser of two evils, even though it clearly wasn't the case. And
it just goes to show how important it is to get some sort of ranked choice voting going in this country.
Yeah.
This problem is solved everywhere that has ranked choice voting.
And
put your top. You put whoever you really want. You rank, like in New York for the primary for mayor. They rank 5 choices. This is going on right now. They rank 5 choices, and if your first choice doesn't get enough to form a majority, then your vote for second choice goes
up.
And
yeah.
if that person doesn't get enough to if the second round still doesn't get in a majority, then you go through all 5 of your choices, and eventually a consensus is come to, and it allows you to put it allows you to put a long shot at the top of your ballot.
Right.
It allows you to put whoever you damn well please at the top of your ballot, and you can feel good about it. You can feel like you're on the right side of history,
Yeah.
and it's just, but this winner take all mentality that we have to have in this country, it ruins.
Yeah.
It's contributing to the electoral problem.
Yeah. I first was introduced to this concept in 2016. I saw a video done by a comedy group in Australia, and they were basically like talking shit about American politics and how it's broken and everything else. And then here in Australia we have this setup, and they talks about what you just said. I was like, wow, that's fucking amazing. Why don't we do that? And I think it's because they know that. I believe that the Republicans know that they would absolutely never win if that was the case.
Yeah, it would give the progressive left a chance.
Yeah.
Which there's way more progressives in this country than people realize. I mean, nobody really wants to get worse. People want things to get better.
Right.
And that's really all it really takes to be a progressive, is just wanting things to be better.
Yeah, and there's not as much stigma with the term progressive as there is for leftist or Democrat.
Socialist.
Or socialist, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, progressive is what I've always considered myself. I've called myself a democratic socialist, which is also true.
Yeah.
But I'm technically more of a liberal progressive. I don't really put labels onto myself, because I feel like a label is never going to be nuanced enough.
Yeah.
But progressive is a label I've never shied away from. I definitely embrace the idea of being a progressive. Even when I was reading my history books in school, the progressive era was my favorite era of history.
All I know is that when I was of age to vote, I voted for Clinton, and my mom was like, oh, okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's a vote, and you're entitled to it, and yeah. I was like, what? You didn't vote for him? I was like, no. I was like, oh, okay.
Did she vote for Ross Perot?
She didn't vote for him. A lot of people in my family are Republican, I've noticed over the years, and or at the very least, they're not Democrats. So, and my sister is like a pretty hardcore Republican, much like my mother. They both watch exclusively Fox News, and before my mom passed away, I remember her spouting off all the catchphrases from Fox. They're trying to take away Christmas. Mexicans are coming over the border in droves, and all the other absolute bullshit.
What does the cynical historian call that?
I don't know.
Moral panic.
Yeah.
It's the starting moral panics over these things.
Yeah.
Which every election cycle they bring up a new one.
And as I've become more and more aware of politics and political stuff, I realize that the vast majority of my family are all Republican, and they either they vote for the candidate they like, or they don't vote at all because they don't like either one. And in my mind, if you don't vote, you don't have anything to complain about. If we get stuck with an asshole for 4 years because you didn't vote, it's kind of your fault, in my mind. If you had voted for the other person, we would have the other person. We wouldn't have the person who's trying to destroy our country. And so, in my mind, people who didn't vote in the election because they didn't like either one, and they wouldn't vote for the Democrat because they're a Democrat. They wouldn't vote for him because he is a thief and he's a liar and he's a felon. And I mean, you're just giving away the presidency to him, because there's a lot of people who voted for him, and I believe that they have no room to talk about how horrible things are happening right now because you didn't vote. You had nothing to do with it. It's
And again, it's just more argument for ranked choice voting because
Yeah.
these people wouldn't have to vote Democrat or Republican. They could vote. They could vote for all these various different third parties.
They could put in their
and
top
write-ins
5 and call it good.
Yeah, they don't have to vote for because the electoral college really locks us into a two-party system. Because if you don't get a majority of the electoral college, it puts the presidential election to the House of Representatives. Therefore, you have to band together with enough people to get 50% plus one.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get your 272 in the electoral college, you might as well not even, it's just going to go to the House of Representatives. So it's always going to default to a two-party system.
Yeah.
That's why every time we've had a third party, one of the three parties ends up falling away or being absorbed into whichever one they're closestly allied with.
Yeah. And and I've had a few members of my family go, well, I didn't vote for her because she's a Democrat and I don't like what she's done. And I was like, yeah, but is she really that much worse than him that you're not going to vote for her? He's like, I don't like either one, so I'm not going to vote. I was like, well, if you don't vote, then we're going to get stuck with whoever the majority of people really want. And at this point, it looks like it could be him. Why aren't you voting? He's like, well, it's the whole, to me, it sounds like that episode of South Park where it's like, the choices are a turd sandwich and a giant douche. I'm not voting.
Well, exactly. That's how a lot of people feel.
Yeah. So.
And it'd be nice if you could, write in people other than those top two,
Right.
other than the turd sandwich or the whatever it was you said.
Giant douche.
Yeah.
I think.
It'd be nice to have to vote for them but still have participated, because eventually, like maybe at your fifth vote is for turd sandwich instead of giant douche, or vice versa.
How many times do you think Mickey Mouse would have won if they were to actually go by who people wrote in a name?
Do you have the answer to this?
No, I don't. It was just a thing that came in my head. It was like, I mean, I know people used to like write Mickey Mouse as like their write-in choice because like I'm not gonna fucking vote for either one of these. I'll put Mickey Mouse in. It's like there has to be like a number of people who wrote in like a cartoon character or a pop culture icon or something, Captain Kirk or Wesley Crusher,
I'd be curious if there is any data. Like, on this election, it turns out Mickey Mouse would have won mayor, but they didn't count him.
Because he's a fictional character. Fictional characters.
I think a lot of our domestic problems would sort themselves out if we had ranked choice voting,
I agree. Yeah.
public funding of elections, and eliminate the electoral college.
They're
So
never
those
going to get
three
rid of the
things-
electoral college, I think, just because,
Well, so the way we get rid of the electoral college is that we states get to decide how they allocate their electoral votes. So right now there's X number of states that have signed on to this amendment that says, not an amendment, but this agreement, that once enough states where their electoral votes, once enough states agree to this agreement, that make up 272 electoral votes. So once you have enough states for that 272, then those states will all change their state legislation so that their EVs go to whoever wins the popular vote.
Yeah.
So then you still have the electoral college, but it's effectively a popular vote election.
Yeah.
So enough states to decide the election agree that they're going to distribute their votes based on whoever won the popular vote.
Hasn't there recently in the last few weeks been like talk about like recounting for this last election because of all the horrible shit going down? That
there's been some stories about it. I may have mentioned one of them or more, but I read them. I shy away from them because what they really are is they're basically saying that. So there are some more far out ones where they're like, hey, there could have been some real malfeasance like in the machines. but most of what I read is that it's through legal means like gerrymandering and voter rolls, purging the voter rolls.
Right.
So they'll go through and they'll like in Ohio or something, they'll be like, oh, we have this new law where we're going to send everybody a flyer, and if you don't respond to the flyer, you're unregistered to vote.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of, and then they just know that, and then they just know that certain people aren't going to respond to it, and they're like, okay, well, that cleared off a bunch of the rolls. Now we go and register more of our people. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying that I've been seeing people talking about how they're really telling people to push to talk to their local representatives or whatever the wording is, to ask for them to do a recount because, I mean, there was information that wasn't it like Trump or Elon had said something along the lines of that that he did some sort of programming or whatever.
I mean, Elon's taking credit for the 2020 win, but I think that's more just based on money and stuff he spent.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
And, I mean, that's not to say that there's nothing there. It's just I don't know that there's anything we can prove. Because they're definitely, I mean, I still leave the possibility open that, Russia or whatever hacking scheme that Putin has together does have access to our voter rolls and did do some sort of shenanigans in 2016 and 2024. But it's also like, why wouldn't they have done that in 2020? Maybe there's a theory that spreading Trump out across 12 years instead of just 8 in a row allows him to do more damage. But ultimately, they're just ideas about what could have happened, and there's no evidence of any actual malfeasance. It's also just all the legal methods that we know they did with voter purging and gerrymandering and making it hard to vote and trying to discourage people to vote. We know that was enough to win. So really don't have to look for a deeper conspiracy.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that you got to vote. You got to make sure you're registered. You got to be out there and be an active voter. If
Make
you're
sure
vote,
that you're
you
still
follow your
registered
vote.
and all that. Yeah, for sure. I know.
Yeah.
I know. About a year ago, I was like making sure that I'm still in the system and still registered. And like right before November, I double checked again just to be on the safe side because I kept seeing all these stories about how people's registrations are being like either purged or deleted or just unregistered or whatever. I was like, that's fucked up. And yeah, and I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do to like maybe like pull him out of office because clearly he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing and
you talking about Trump still?
Yeah, just he's not.
Yeah, I mean, impeachment's that's the thing is impeachment is the remedy. Congressional oversight is the remedy. The judges are blocking him as much as they can, and so that is one other
a number
guardrail.
of times before he even became president. So what's the point of impeachment if it doesn't do anything?
Yeah,
and he didn't go to jail for it. He didn't go to jail for all 34 felonies. And I don't know. It's frustrating to hear all this shit every day. And like, why isn't somebody like, hey, maybe we should go back and look all that shit and make sure that it is what it is and that there isn't like a pile of fucking ballots sitting in a warehouse someplace next to the Ark of the Covenant,
Well, I definitely would have liked to have seen the Democrats fight harder legally when it comes to votes and stuff like that. But again, people call it 4D chess. I think it's just the luck of being a whiny bitch. But, having pushed back on Trump and all the voter fraud he falsely claimed after 2020, it's hard to turn around and try and do the same thing back to him. You know what I mean? It's like, it looks like it's just sour grapes like his were. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, you're just suing because Trump sued and you're just acting like Trump and you won't admit that you lost. And
so because they don't want to appear like they're sore losers, so they're not gonna do anything about it. They're just gonna, you know what, he probably cheated. He probably did something to put it in his favor. But we're not going to do anything about it because we don't want to look like we're a bunch of fucking losers.
Well, and we don't want to undermine our system because that's the thing is that's a long American tradition, is not fighting election results to the extent that you could, because anytime you fight election results, you're undermining the entire electoral system. You're basically putting it all into
So
question.
it just makes it
And-
easier for people who do cheat to go ahead and do what they did.
but if we had if you just basically have both sides never giving in and never conceding and always pushing everything to the furthest legal limit or beyond the legal limits each time, then eventually you just don't have elections anymore. You just have fights.
Yeah.
And that's part of where Trump is trying to drag us. So I think, again, it's not my preferred strategy on how to deal with a bully, but it is one way to do it, which is you let the bully punch himself out instead of trying to start a fight. But
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack.
no,
the conversation.
even though that story really wasn't right, it ended up leading to a good conversation. So I like that. So last 3 stories on the weekly news. We'll rapid fire these real quick. It's all bad news. What else is new, right? But I do feel like it's something that everybody, especially if you're in Western Washington, or in the state of Washington, you should really hear about, or in the Pacific Northwest, I guess, in general, and even in America. So the Washington State Patrol uses cell phone data to predict and prevent dangerous drivers. So what's happening here is the Washington State Patrol used cell phone data collected in 2023 from more than 1 million cell phone users in Washington helped the state identify habits of dangerous drivers. So Shelley Baldwin, the director of Washington Traffic Safety Commission, said the WTSC used state funding to purchase telematic data gathered by Michelin Mobility Intelligence. So first of all, like they're spending money to buy our data from private companies that have in some way acquired our data. And they say this is so exciting to be using that data that we haven't had access to before. It's predictive as opposed to reflective. The data revealed when and where drivers had sped, used their brakes, talked on the phone, and texted while on Washington roadways. So here's the kicker. Here's why I feel like this was a waste of money and privacy, a waste of a privacy intrusion. WSP will utilize the newly acquired data to search for speeders in 4 Washington locations over the next 6 weeks. These 4 locations, which they needed this data to determine, are I-5 from Joint Base Lewis McChord to Fife, I-5 from Fife to Auburn, I-5 north and south of Everett, and a 14-mile stretch of I-90 east and west of Spokane. Literally everywhere they already had speed traps.
Yeah.
This is like, they didn't need to buy this data. They didn't, in order to know that these were the most important areas for them to hit. They already know this. They already stocked those locations. Everybody already knows to expect cops in those locations. But damn it, they got the data now to prove it. Other bit of bad news. Crater Lake National Park superintendent resigns over Trump staffing cuts. So Crater Lake down in Oregon.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful place if nobody's ever been.
I'm aware
Nobody's
of it.
ever
Never
been.
been
That's right.
there.
Nobody's ever been there. But a beautiful place if you've never been. The superintendent, Kevin Heatley, has resigned, citing deep staffing cuts he says are unsustainable and damaging to one of the nation's natural treasures. Heatley stepped down Friday after just 5 months in the role. In an interview with KGW on Tuesday, he said the decision was difficult but necessary given the direction of federal staffing policies. I did not want to be empowering the current administration to cause that kind of impact on the people that I'm responsible for, Heatley said. And I also did not want to participate in the dismantlement, effectively a dismantlement, of the National Park Service. Heatley criticized what he described as a systemic effort to shrink the Park Service workforce, pointing to early retirement incentives for veteran employees and terminations of newer staff without clear cause. He said policies initiated under the Trump administration continue to erode the agency's ability to function. We're being told, for instance, when people leave, that they only want to replace 25% of those permanent positions. You can't run an organization like that. So again, we just have further evidence of the Trump administration dismantling our public infrastructure. And we've mentioned it on this podcast before, but again, if you are not following the Alt National Park Service on social media, please do so. ALT Alt National Park Service on Facebook, on Blue Sky. Follow them, please. They're going to keep you better updated on a lot of this kind of stuff than we're able to. And lastly, for my news, and this is some sad news that requires further exploration. Marijuana use, coming from CNN.com, marijuana use dramatically increases risk of dying from heart attacks and stroke, large study finds. Now, the one thing that we don't know is how the marijuana was taken. If the marijuana was predominantly smoked, then that's definitely going to lead to a higher chance of heart issues and stroke.
Yeah.
Anytime you combust carbon and inhale it in your lungs, that's bad for you.
Yep.
But so, according to this study, using marijuana doubles the risk of dying from heart disease, according to a new analysis of pooled medical data involving 200 million people, mostly between the ages of 19 and 59. What was particularly striking was that the concerned patients hospitalized for these disorders were young and with no history of cardiovascular disorder or cardiovascular risk factors. Compared to non-users, those who used cannabis also had a 29% higher risk for heart attacks and a 20% higher risk for stroke. This is one of the largest studies to date on the connection between marijuana and heart disease, and it raises serious questions about the assumption that cannabis imposes little cardiovascular risk. Getting this right is critically important because cardiovascular disease is the top cause of death, both in the United States and globally. Clinicians need to screen people for cannabis use and educate them about its harms the same way we do for tobacco. The new systematic review and meta-analysis analyzed medical information from large observational studies conducted in Australia, Egypt, Canada, France, Sweden, and the US between 2016 and 2023. Those studies did not ask people how they use cannabis, such as via smoking, vaping, dabbing, edibles, tinctures, topicals. However, based on epidemiological data, it is likely that cannabis was smoked in the vast majority of cases.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is smoking tobacco is a well-known cause of heart disease, and smoking marijuana is also going to have a similar effect. Controversially, or alternatively, however you might want to say it, there's been studies going back to the 1950s that said when you control for tobacco use, marijuana does not actually cause things like lung cancer. There's a famous study from 1954. It's called "On Becoming a Marijuana User," and people that only smoked marijuana from this pool, as they studied them as life went on, the people who only smoked marijuana did not develop lung cancer at the same rate as people who smoked tobacco. If you smoked tobacco and marijuana, then you could see lung cancer showing up in the population. But if you only smoked marijuana, that wasn't the case. I would need to refresh myself on that study for the specifics. But my memory of it was if you only smoked marijuana, you weren't getting lung cancer. Whether that's because the THC helped inhibit any kind of tumors, or if it was just at a lower rate. I don't recall specifically. This article does say edibles may also play a role in heart disease. People who consumed edibles laced with THC showed signs of early cardiovascular disease similar to tobacco smokers. We found that vascular function was reduced by 42% in marijuana smokers and by 56% in THC edible users compared to non-users. It just doesn't make sense that the edibles would be reduced by even more, which is confusing, and part of why I think this needs further study. Unless they're just saying that the edible users were also smoking, which they're not controlling for.
Yeah.
But this is really the first time ever I've heard something negative about heart disease and stroke when it comes to THC alone. I've always known smoking itself is bad for you no matter what you're smoking. But this is the first time I've ever seen something suggest that edibles even would be harmful for you. So this is something to keep an eye on, especially if you live in a state where weed is legal like we do.
Yeah, yeah.
And with that bit of good news, we can, at long last, head to What's Geek this week.
Welcome to What's Geek this week. Your go-to for the coolest in pop culture, tech, and nerdy news. Let's dive in.
All right. So yeah, I picked a few stories this week. One of the things I saw this late last night, early this morning, that the let me pull this up here. Castlevania producer Adi Shankar buys the rights to Duke Nukem series. Renegade producer Andy Shankar has been on a hot streak with video game adaptations lately. His Castlevania animated series ran for 4 seasons on Netflix and spawned a spin-off. Plus, his latest endeavor, a TV adaptation of the Devil May Cry video game, has been renewed for a second season on the platform. Shankar now has another beloved game property to add to his slate at his cheekily titled company Bootleg Universe, Duke Nukem. While
So there's a Devil May Cry?
yeah, it
TV
came
show?
out. It came out a month or so back. It's on Netflix.
Oh, really? I'll have to check that out.
It's animated. It's like a. It's in the same style of animation as the Castlevania one. So.
I could get, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's kind of like a Western anime style. So. Duke Nukem, while there's been several aborted attempts to give the character his series of games the Hollywood treatment, it seems Duke Nukem has found the right storyteller with Shankar. Shankar broke the news that he acquired the rights to Duke Nukem last week on Esquire. I'm being approached with different IPs and companies that want to work with me. I bought the rights to Duke Nukem, Shankar shared. Not the gaming rights, but I bought it for from Gearbox. Duke Nukem made his debut as the protagonist in a PC game series when the larger-than-life, gruff-voiced hero transitioned to console games in the late 90s and subsequently found its footing. I don't know, man. That game for the PC was like really. It took existing games like Doom and Quake and then like added a whole nother level to it because those games were hyper violent and there was lots of running around shooting and it was a 3D kind of not role playing game, first person shooter style game, and plus, I mean, the character, he had some of the funniest one-liners, and I heard rumors, and I have not verified this, but I've seen online that people are saying how Duke Nukem borrows a lot of his catchphrases from Ash from The Evil Dead, and so like,
Yes.
hail to the
I was
king,
gonna
baby,
mention
and
that, yeah.
you know, all that, and the guy who voices Duke Nukem is on. He does live streams all the time on TikTok, and he will, people request him to say things, and he'll respond to it. But so I'm curious as to how this is going to turn out. It's probably we're not going to see it for a few years, I think. But let's see what it says here.
I do think they got the right guy. It sounds like for doing a show based on Duke Nukem.
Yeah,
He definitely appeared. I mean, he obviously has a good track record with this sort of thing. But he seems to get it, like, because he talks about how the thing with Duke Nukem is it's a middle finger to everybody. When Duke Nukem blew up, a bunch of people sat around trying to turn it into a brand, he said, when it's just a middle finger.
yeah.
So if they make it like an adult humor type of show.
Yeah, I hope they yeah. I hope they definitely make it like not a show for kids. That it has to be 18 plus. It has to be for adults. You can't you can't neuter Duke Nukem and make it work. And if they did a PG-13 version of Duke Nukem, it won't be Duke. It'll be somebody else. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. It doesn't say when it's going to be out, but he just got the rights. So he's probably at this point not even working on scripts
It's
yet.
early. It's
Yeah,
early.
it's really early. So, next story I have here, I did pare it down a little bit because I didn't want us to go too terribly long. The next story I have here is that it looks like there's going to be another reboot of the Land of the Lost TV series from the late '60s, early '70s. I think is when I remember watching this as a kid, as a toddler even, and it used to terrify the hell out of me. The sleaze stacks were super creepy. Netflix is partnering with Legendary Entertainment to breathe new life into the beloved '70s sci-fi adventure series Land of the Lost. Is what the caption for the image says. The two kids from that show are always doing like live streams and videos on Instagram. I think they were actually here in Washington a couple years back at a place that used to do like meet and greets down in Auburn. That place has since closed down. They didn't stick around for much longer. Let's see here. Originally debuted in 1974, Land of the Lost quickly carved out a unique space in the landscape of classic science fiction. The series follows the Marshall family, Father Rick and two children, Will and Holly, whose peaceful White River rafting trip takes a shocking turn when an earthquake sends them tumbling into a bizarre prehistoric realm. The mysterious dimension, both dangerous and awe-inspiring, was filled with dinosaurs, ancient ruins, and strange creatures capturing the imaginations of young viewers like myself with every episode. I just remember watching this show, and they had giant fruits. They had like giant raspberries and giant strawberries when they were picking for food. There was the dinosaurs were all claymation, so stop motion animation at its worst. I don't know if you ever saw this, Doug. You were probably not born yet when it was on TV originally, but they did a reboot of sorts in like the '90s, I think.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out. Is I definitely remember watching Land of the Lost as a kid, but I don't think it was the '74 version.
Yeah, no, you probably want to watch the one that's from '91.
Yeah, which I couldn't have told you how long the show was on when I watched it, but apparently went on for 2 seasons. That makes sense in '91.
Yeah, and what's really funny is in 2009, Land of the Lost received the big screen adaptation with Will Ferrell, reimagining the broad comedy, blah, 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 blah. The thing that cracks me up about him doing this movie is it came out about 10 years after he played a character in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. His character name in that movie was Marshall Willinolly. Willinolly was his last name. Marshall was his first name. Or not, Marshall was his job. And so it was a play on words, kind of making fun of the Land of the Lost. Marshall, Will, and Holly. I just remember I remember seeing that movie going, did he do that on purpose? And then of course I saw it in like a video commentary for that movie. It's like, yes, that was on purpose. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think I first heard about this maybe a couple weeks back. Sid Croft still does live streams on Instagram on occasion, and he'll talk about like old shows that he's done, and he also mentions when they have new versions coming out and he's been working with. Is it like like an executive producer kind of giving hey, they should do it like this and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's that. And then next story is I didn't know this until just a month or so back, but there is a new Toxic Avenger coming out, and I just watched the trailer for it, and it has oh shit.
So the first trailer for the Toxic Avenger remake was released in October 2023, and then it's been kind of quiet since then.
Yeah, and the most recent one, I guess, is the movie is being released as unrated, so it's gonna be really violent.
Well, wasn't that like the original Toxie movies, like B-movie schlock with like major violence and nudity.
Yeah. So it's not being done by Trauma this time. It's being done by some other people, and I'm sure it says here. I did read this, but I don't remember what it said. It's got Peter Dinklage as the lead character. I mean, before he becomes toxic.
Voicing the lead character.
Well, he is the lead character completely, but he's not in the costume when he becomes toxic.
Gotcha.
He is the loser before he becomes toxic, and then he becomes the voice of toxic, and they have somebody else doing the inside the costume, so he doesn't have to wear all the prosthetic stuff.
Lucky him.
Right? The person inside the costume, her name is Luisa Guerrero. She basically puts on all the prosthetics, and she does the acting. And he just kind of like matches the lip flaps of what she's saying. So I don't know, the commercial, the trailer that I saw yesterday. This version of the Toxic Avenger is a little person. It was like little tiny person. Like the original Toxic Avenger, the human character was kind of a dweeby. He was like maybe 5'6", super skinny, really like the 80s style nerd. And then he became like this big burly dude when he became the Toxic Avenger. In this, he's staying the same size. He just becomes super strong. So from what I do remember in the article, it says that they took elements from the original movie as well as the Toxic Avengers cartoon series from the 80s, as far as the visuals and the
Go ahead. The cartoon series is what I knew the Toxic Avenger from. I wasn't until I got a little older and found out about the risque movies,
I don't know
unrated movies.
I don't know if I've ever watched the entirety of the movie. I think I started watching it. I was like, yeah, no. I turned it off.
It's really, I mean, it's cult classic, but it's really poorly made.
I mean, I think that's why I stopped watching, because it was just, the acting was atrocious, and
it almost is like a home movie.
It does. It's like a home movie with a budget, and the budget's maybe $1.50.
But it's funny because like after Ninja Turtles, Toxie was my first, like, he was the first action figure I got with like my own money.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And I had no idea about the movies at that point. I just knew them from the cartoon.
We'll have to go see this movie when it hits theaters, man, because I haven't seen. You probably can find those movies online on one of the streaming sites for free. The original Toxic Avenger, I'm sure it's probably either on Pluto or it's on Tubi. Either one of those two.
Or Pornhub.
I don't think it'd be on Pornhub, but I mean, it would, because of the style of storytelling that it is. There's always gratuitous boobs, and never bush though, which is fine, but still, lots of side boob, lots of full frontal, all that kind of stuff. All right, so
it's too bad Hillary never took on George, because then we could have had a boobs over Bush campaign.
Right. All right. So.
No, we did get Bush v. Gore, which sounds like a smut film.
I remember. Was it? Oh God, I'm drawing a blank here. All right.
I like that it has practical effects. I like that they're gonna see you can see all the goopy little boils and stuff like that they talked about.
Right. Yeah. No, that's one of the things I remember from the original movies is there was lots of really obnoxiously gross special effects. All right, I think now it's time for That's Some Weird Shit.
Some weird shit, where we dig up the craziest, quirkiest stories that make you go, what the heck just happened? Buckle up, it's about to get weird.
All right. I had just a couple of stories, 2 or 3 stories here. The first one is that, I don't know if you've seen these, Doug, but they've been really popular the last couple of weeks. They're all over social media. People are using AI to create these viral Bigfoot videos, and it's.
I have not seen these.
Oh my God!
No, I am not surprised.
They are really, really funny. It's like, man, I shouldn't have eaten that Taco Bell.
Like a Jack Link's commercial.
Yeah, I mean they don't look like Bigfoot as much as they look like like either orangutans or like big apes, you know. But and they're just goofy, like couple lines. All you gotta do to find them is look up Bigfoot on social media, and it will be I think it'll be one of the first things that pops up. But this is what it says here on unexplainedmysteries.com. AI generated footage showing Bigfoot vlogging about his day has been showing up everywhere recently. Bigfoot seems to have become something of an internet celebrity over the last few weeks, thanks to a new AI video generation tool enabling just about anyone to create vlog-style clips. The videos, which are actually quite impressive visually, show one or more Bigfoot-type creatures getting up to their daily activities in the woods while talking directly to the camera. Yes, apparently Bigfoot speaks perfect English and has an American accent. These guys must not be from America.
Of course he would.
You know, I almost expected him to kind of have a southern accent, you know.
But he's more of a Northwest guy.
He's definitely a Northwest guy in these videos because he sounds like everybody from around here. What was particularly remarkable is how easily it is to produce videos like this. Google's VO3 video generator can create entire videos based on little more than a textual input from the user. That said, subscriptions to the service are not exactly cheap. If you haven't seen any of the AI Bigfoot vlogs before, you can check out this one below. You know what? I think I should be able to play the audio from it at least.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. A lot of you have been asking why I'm so rarely caught on camera.
This is why you humans never see me.
Is
Hey!
it playing?
So those humans I talked to, they said they won't tell anyone. Had to cut that part out
I'm not hearing it.
for reasons.
Oh, you're not?
And I forgot to mention, those humans, they gave me their phones too. Always helps keep the vlogs going.
Okay.
Guys,
I'm not
fun
gonna play the
fact.
whole thing. It's like 1 minute and 30 seconds long. That was like the first 30 seconds. It was the audio is showing up on the recording, so you should be able to hear it there. But yeah, it's yeah, like I said, just search for Bigfoot vlog, VLOG, and it's there's a bunch of them now. I've seen at least a half a dozen of these things in the last couple weeks. They're very funny, and I didn't even bother to look up what AI thing they're using because I figured I don't want to be another person to kind of jump on that bandwagon and just not have it go anywhere. So yeah, I didn't bother. But yeah, no, I've seen a lot of those, and when I saw this article, I was like, that's hilarious. All right, so this last story I have here, I've seen this before, and I think I almost included it like a month ago on an episode, but I found some better stories to talk about. But I decided to go ahead and pull it up this time. Screeching like a gull is the goal of this bird-brained contest. The European Gull Screeching Championship attracted 60
Seagull noises?
seagull soundalikes from 14 countries to the coastal town of De Panne in Belgium. This past week. Yeah, okay. This past weekend, and this came out in May, so it was been a couple months at least. So it says it's good to have a goal, even if it's screeching like a seagull. And that was the aim of the 5th annual European Gull Screeching Championship, which attracted 60 seagull soundalikes from 14 countries to the coastal town this past weekend, according to Boing Boing. Contestants were awarded points based on their sound and performance in 3 categories: adult, junior, and coney. That's a group of gulls. Okay. The contest is intended to create more positive image of the seabirds, which have been called trash birds, beach rats, klepto gulls by naysayers. Klepto gulls. I love that one. That one's awesome. I would have just called them. Well, those are all really good ones. I always just thought they were just like crows, but like gentrified crows. Gulls are known to be intrusive, to be so intrusive that the zoo in Blackpool, England, hired people to dress up in inflatable eagle costumes to scare the birds away. That's great. The gulls won't get any hate from Denmark's Anna Breinald, who took gold in the quirky contest. I like that the seagulls like fries because I love fries, and they're just a bit misunderstood like me, and they're cute.
One time I was at Cedar Point in Ohio, and I saw a seagull swallow another bird whole.
I don't doubt it.
I was eating my fried cheese on a stick that I got at Cedar Point there, and feeding French fries to the little sparrows. And a little sparrow took a French fry, and then a seagull just took him, and just reared back and swallowed him whole, alive.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, when it comes to seagulls, I always think of Finding Nemo. Mine, and that's exactly how. I mean, the voice actors who did those characters in that movie, they definitely embodied that screeching sound that these animals make, these birds. She says she was slightly under the. Hold up. She admits practicing for the bird brain contest had its challenges. I worked with the seagulls. I went to the beach and looked at many seagulls, and I thought they looked nice, and I screeched at them, and they became scared of me. She said, maybe I'm saying something wrong in seagull language. I don't know. Oh, my God.
Do we want to hear some of this from the video?
Oh, I can play. Yeah, I can play some of the video. Hold on.
I won't hear it, evidently, but when I listen back, I'll get to hear it.
Yeah. This is at the 1 hour 46 minutes. I'll go ahead and play it. You can pull it up.
People think seagulls are annoying.
Some people hate them. They see them like rats of the sea. They screech a lot. They make a lot of noise. They leave their droppings everywhere.
Yep.
It's just part of the seacoast. So you need to balance that. We need some more simple.
No, we don't. We don't really need to be. No, they're basically like, yeah, we need to be nicer to them, because people see them as just noise and they're crap everywhere. And yeah. No, I'm not saying be mean to them, but you don't have to be nice to them.
Yeah, don't be cruel to animals. But yeah, I can see why people don't really want seagulls around.
I mean,
I've enjoyed feeding seagulls in my life, but
I mean,
probably not the best.
It's one thing if it's just one or two, but if there's like 30 or 40 of them and they're all like demanding you feed them, no. I don't even like feeding like those birds at parks and stuff, because that means that they're not actively looking for their own food. They're just waiting for somebody else to show up and give them food.
Yeah.
I don't even like doing that to the animals in the house. So, yeah, no, that's it. That's all I got for today. I had a couple more, but like I said, I thinned them out because I think we were running a little long today.
We've had a nice full show.
Yes,
yeah, I wasn't sure how long my sections would take. They took plenty of time, as it turned out.
I wasn't sure how long. I mean, I don't mind us talking for a couple hours. That's fine, and that's not uncommon for a podcast to go for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, whatever.
Well, and like you pointed out, if anybody gets bored during a particular segment, they can always skip ahead.
Exactly. All right, and I think that is it for today, everybody. Thanks for
if you made it this far, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming
out. Please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to. And if you're not listening to the Majority Report every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time on YouTube or themajorityreport.com, this is not sponsored. I think the Majority Report is a great way to stay in touch daily with the news, hear guests that are experts on topics that you won't normally hear covered in your evening national news.
Right.
So I've recommended a lot of people, but I need to really stress my recommendation for the Majority Report on YouTube.
And as always, we will have links to everything in the show description down below. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Have a great week, guys.
Can't hide.